My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Summers, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Last Ball Drops, day 3 of this series. And we have a special guest here with us, the one and only Gil Gross from Monday Match Analysis, 3, a tennis show, tennis channel broadcaster. You guys know him really well by now. But yeah, hi, Gil.
Hey, Vanch, and a friend of the show. I, too, am a friend of the show. Let it be known. Great to be on with you. Can't wait to get into what was a really fun day of Wimbledon action.
Of course, yes. So should we start with Berrettini versus Sinner? Because we're still maybe trying to process that a little bit.
It's fresh. It's fresh. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sinner comes through in 4 sets, 3 tie breaks. Of course, Sinner winning a 6-2 set. I'm not sure many people had that in there. I mean, Sinner losing a 6-2 set, I should say, after going up 2 sets to love. I'm not sure many people had that on their bingo card. But what did you make of the match overall? Kind of tactically, was it more kind of what you were expecting, based on the matches you've seen Berrettini play against top players in majors?
Yeah, I think it was probably in my range of outcomes. It fell into what I thought was possible, that Berrettini was going to play a really competitive 4-setter with Sinner. I wouldn't have been shocked if it was easier for Jannik. So I think that it was kind of best case scenario for Berrettini is how it ended up playing out. But I think Matteo should be really encouraged by the results. However, it also feels like it's kind of a replay of almost every match that Berrettini plays against the top player. And I just kind of tweeted out a stat where the last now 6 times Berrettini has played a top 5 player at Wimbledon, he has lost in exactly 4 sets, not 3, not 5, but 4. So this kind of tends to be where he's been sitting.
Yeah, there's an interesting stat about the 4 sets. I guess when it comes to the tie breaks, what do you think really stood out in terms of, was it the Sinner's ability to return many first serves back into play, force Matteo into hitting, uncomfortable backhands, getting him on the move? Like, there were so many things that Sinner did so well, I think, to clinch those in tight moments.
Yeah, 100% the return to me stood out in Jannik's game as a whole. In fact, I thought he, by his standards, was pretty average in almost every other facet. I think he served well. I think he returned the first serve of Berrettini really well throughout the match. Not quite as much the second serve. I think he missed some crucial second serve returns. But first set tiebreak, the return was awesome. And in the final set tiebreak, or the 4th set tiebreak, the return of serve was incredible. You had that stab return on what was a perfect wide serve on the ad side by Berrettini, where Sinner just kind of threw his body at it, made the stick save. It popped way up in the air, made Berrettini hit a forehand from off the court. It was not a difficult forehand, but he was in a position where if he didn't hit a winner, he would have been in huge trouble, which always kind of maximizes the amount of pressure that Matteo would be feeling in that situation. On the match point, he also hit a stifling return to force an error. That was at 6-4, so that Sinner didn't need to play that pressure 6-5 point. And there were numerous examples. He even almost broke serve earlier at the end of the 4th to close out the match at it was either 5-6 or 5-all. I forget how it was going there. It would have been at 5-6 when Berrettini was serving. Sinner started that game 2 returns in a row where Matteo was literally falling backwards on the +1 forehand because the return was so deep in the court.
Yeah.
So I thought that was the shot that stood out for Sinner far and away. And I actually think he was average in a lot of other areas.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially the second set, the game that Sinner got broken. I think for Matteo to go up 4-2, he had a game point to go up 5-2 there. Didn't make many first serves in that game. I thought that was pretty. If he consolidates there for 5-2, maybe he's able to kind of stretch that lead a little bit. Maybe they go into the third set, 1-set all. But that's where you had the re-break situation, both I guess in the second set and in the fourth set, right? Because in the fourth set also, you had Berrettini going up the early break. But I think I give Sinner a lot more credit, especially in the fourth set. I would say the second set, I think Matteo could have played a better game there.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was strange because his serve had been spotless, and then suddenly there was a dip in the quality of his serve in that game. Missed first serves, as you said. I think 2 double faults in that game in the second set as well at 4-2. So didn't give himself much of a chance, and then it got back on level terms. Berrettini, historically, great tiebreak player. So, it's impressive to beat him in 3 tiebreaks. Obviously, Sinner in his career has also been a really good tiebreak player. I also think, I guess where Jannik was maybe a little bit disappointing in the match was that he wasn't dominating from the back of the court in the rallies against Berrettini as much as I think he would want to, at least for the first 3 sets. And I think it got better in the fourth, but I didn't really love Sinner's approach from the baseline. I thought he was just kind of doing a little bit too much backhand peppering and letting Berrettini get comfortable using the backhand slice and looking for forehands. I thought Matteo had too many runaround opportunities in general. And I was surprised that Jannik didn't get Berrettini running out to his forehand more often until midway through the fourth set. I stopped feeling like Jannik was missing that opportunity, and I think he was taking those opportunities. It's easier said than done, but I think Sinner also deserves credit for figuring that out eventually, although I'm surprised that it took so long.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there were also some times where Sinner was trying to change directions and go backhand on the line off of these really low slices.
Yeah.
And that was a little strange because I thought, in a point like that, he might just be more comfortable trading cross court, waiting for the runaround forehand, but instead he just kept trying to go. I mean, that's how he lost the break in the fourth set, but to his credit, he then regrouped and was able to get right back to work. But
right. Well, I think the key would be not getting into that position in the first place, because you had Berrettini just very comfortable in his backhand wing, trading with the low slice. His slice was effective in this match. But I don't think he was getting moved around all that much in some cases. And you're right, Sinner was kind of, it almost seemed like he was just looking to go to the backhand early and to find something attackable. It's not my favorite way that Berrettini can be played. I think it's, especially if you have the skills to do it which Sinner does, I think it's a lot better to actually go at his forehand early on to just get a little bit more athleticism and motion in the point where you have some running and some open court to work with.
yeah, absolutely. And then if you can get Berrettini running to his forehand as well, and he's almost always going to play really high risk when he's on the run hitting a forehand. He's going to always try to go for just a crazy down the line, or something where he's just out of position and doesn't have enough time to recover back to the middle. And I thought whenever Sinner tried to do that, he was
that way. No, absolutely right. I don't think, again, if you're going to just trade to Berrettini's backhand passively, he's not necessarily going to miss all that much for you, especially when he's slicing his backhand. I'm not going to say his slice was completely rock solid, consistent throughout the match, but it's pretty consistent. You're definitely going to get more misses if you put him under a little bit of pressure going into his forehand. But it's neither here nor there. Sinner was good attacking behind his serve. He did serve pretty well. So even if he didn't get the better of the baseline rallies on a consistent basis through the first 3 sets, he was obviously still able to hold serve consistently, return really well, and play well enough to win those tie breaks and to put himself in a winning position.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to move on to other results as well that happened throughout the day, but I guess just bigger picture on Sinner, where he kind of goes from here. Looking at his draw, he was supposed to play. If the seeds held up, he was supposed to have played Griekspoor in the next round, but now it's Kecmanovic. I think he'll be happier about that for sure. Um, but also just how Sinners looked to you the first couple of rounds, because to me, like coming into this major, I've not seen so many people like ever before picking Sinner to win it, all the way through. Like even coming into Australia, I don't think that many people were picking Sinner to go all the way and win the title, because there was still that hesitation with Novak being so dominant in Australia, etc. But I think this time around, I mean, he really has that weight and pressure on his shoulders, and you can see him kind of carrying that at times in his first couple of rounds. Being a lot more frustrated, looking at his box a little bit more, a few throwing of the racket, like just a little bit more outward emotion, I think, from Yannick than we're used to be seeing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you made like a 2024 Sinner average performance, he'd be below it in both of his matches at Wimbledon so far. He's played
Agreed.
below average matches for Yannick Sinner on both occasions. Just the ball striking also hasn't been as sharp. There's been more head scratching decisions, which I feel like isn't a part of his game when he's at his best. There were some passing shots in this match that I thought he just didn't necessarily hit well, which was surprising to see. He had some moments on passing shots as well, but a lot of like kind of mistimed balls, slight mishits, some that went right at Berrettini. So it just kind of, that to me is a little bit of extra tension, a little bit of a lack of kind of free-flowing confidence, and expectations can certainly do that. Sinner has handled the expectations since the Australian Open title so extraordinarily well. And emotionally, even I think when he's feeling stressed, he always keeps it together. So relatively speaking, I just consider him a titan mentally already in his career. But I always say, I don't like to draw too many conclusions when it comes to how these top players perform in the opening couple rounds, unless they are exerting way too much energy, which I don't think Sinner has, or obviously if they're getting themselves into trouble where they could lose, because you gotta win, you gotta advance. But I'm not a big believer in, because Sinner's form has been less than stellar or less than super impressive in the first two rounds, it necessarily means that if you picked Sinner to win the title, which I didn't personally, but let's say you did, I don't think you should be sweating or nervous about that pick, because I don't think what he looked like in these first two rounds is going to have any bearing on what level he might be bringing to the table towards the end of the tournament.
Yeah, I definitely agree that sometimes we look too much into the opening rounds of majors, and we let that kind of extrapolate what's going to happen later in the second week. But yeah, looks like you have a new fan in the chat, with Jake, by the way. So hello to him. I guess, shall we talk about some of the other results that happened today? With just one more thing on Sinner, I guess he must be really relieved that he finished this match in 4, because it was getting really close to the curfew and he would have had to continue, potentially come back, play a 5th tomorrow. So that he now has a day off coming before his third round. So that's definitely big.
Totally. Yeah, let's hit some other results.
Yeah, for sure. So a match that I was really kind of locked into from time to time on my screen today, Paul versus Virtanen. Virtanen, the qualifier, saved 4 match points in his second round of qualies, third round of qualies. And Tommy was in real danger of losing this match. But I was very impressed by how he played, especially the last 2 games of the 5th set. And that was a really tough test. I think Virtanen is a really imposing player, actually, particularly on this court, on grass.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, Virtanen has bigger weapons than Tommy. And I know it's weird to say, Otto and Tommy are very far apart in terms of career accomplishments and rankings and all of that. But that's not how Paul hasn't really made a living by serving players off the court or hitting players off the court. But that's kind of what Otto does. And on grass, that firepower is rewarded in a big way. And it means that Tommy needs to be extra sharp, extra consistent, extra creative. It means that he might need to come up with some spectacular shot making and defend hard. And I think for the first, in some of these sets that he lost, Tommy made maybe a couple too many loose errors. but in the end, I think he basically decided once he was down 2-1, I'm going to make Otto earn this at every step of the way. I thought he dug in big time physically, showed a lot of heart, used his speed, and kind of out-fitnessed Virtanen. It's not a way that we don't talk about that on grass much. It doesn't come into play much. But by the end, I just thought Tommy still had his legs and Otto didn't. And that's also because Tommy was able to, I think, intentionally drag this match into kind of a lot of physical long rallies.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially towards the end of the fifth set, where Tommy just like relied on his athleticism, his movement, and I feel like he just went into this lockdown mode after like 4-all of just like cannot miss. And he was using his forehand so creatively, like opening up the court better with like angles. And Tommy likes to come forward and he wants to come in, use his backhand, like take it early, come forward, do that. But like if he's being plastered behind the baseline all the time and he's having to like react to like deep shots coming right at his feet, I feel like that's one thing that Virtanen was just, because of the serve and because of like the first strike tennis he was able to play for the first 3 sets, or at least the first and the third, I would say. That's when Tommy found himself in a little bit of trouble, particularly also when he had to like create sometimes on his forehand. But I feel like eventually as the match wore on, he kind of figured out like he doesn't need to, go for point ending shots on that wing, and he can just sort of, just use his consistency advantage.
Definitely. Agreed. And Otto, I think he played a terrific match. I think both players should be pretty proud of the result in the end and how they played in the end. I guess the one thing that Otto probably could have done is I could give you maybe 5 or so forehands down the stretch, end of the fourth, end of the fifth, where maybe he got a little tight on that wing, especially inside the court. And oftentimes it was credit to Tommy's D, making Otto play an extra ball here or there. But there were definitely a collection of forehands that you felt like he wasn't missing until the finish line pressure came into play, and then Otto sprayed a few.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about that section of the draw, I mean, I guess potential fourth round was him versus Casper Ruud. If Casper was gonna get that far, but I guess Fabio Fognini comes up with a 4-set win there, and actually it could have been even easier because Fabio had, I think, 5-2 match point, served for it twice in the third, ended up having to play a fourth. But I guess, what do you sort of make of that result in the context of Ruud and, grass season and all of that?
Sure. I mean, Casper can't get a better draw than this on paper. I mean, Fognini certainly, he's a talent, he's a shot maker, and he served a lot better than I thought he would be able to serve in this match. When Fognini is feeling confident and striking the ball well, it's not fun to play him, that's for sure. But still, I mean, he's ranked in the 90s. His best results throughout his career are very much on clay, which goes underlooked with him because he's not a grinder. He's an offensive player. So some folks don't really lump him into the clay category, but if you look at the win percentages, he really is in there. But Ruud, he just wasn't the more damaging player, I think, in any aspect. And there was some backhand slice defense stuff with Casper that I think wasn't very effective in this match. And Fognini doing well to come forward and actually finish when Ruud was playing slice from defensive positions. But I don't know. I didn't get a lot of like super clear key tactical patterns in this match, other than Fognini in every facet of the game finding damage a whole lot easier than Casper.
Yeah,
what did
definitely.
you see?
I also thought like his forehand, wasn't doing enough damage like at all on the grass, especially.
Yeah,
I think in any set, honestly, even the third set that he won, just the extra, I guess the low bounce, the zip, like all that stuff that's favorable on grass. I just feel like it sits up too much and like just allows his opponents to attack. And then he's having to hit passing shots on the backhand, which is kind of trouble for him, especially because he can't really defend open stance and his slice floats too much. So he was just kind of having to, just do a lot of defending. And Fognini was just taking the ball super early, taking so much time away from him. And it never looked good for him.
Yeah, I mean, even Casper's backhand it's a spin shot. It's the highest RPM two-handed backhand in all of tennis. And you're right. It just that hits the grass and it just doesn't kick up the way Casper needs it to kick up. And you wind up, even Fanini, I think he's 5'10" on a good day. It's where he wants the ball. It's in his strike zone, and he's going to take big aggressive rips where Ruud is going to be more of a passenger in that situation. And I also think you're right to point out it's a 4-setter, but it really should have been straights. I think the only thing for Casper, I don't think it's as egregious as what happened last year against Liam Brody in the big picture. Two factors. One, the fact that he didn't play any Wimbledon lead-ups makes a whole lot more sense with the Olympics coming after Wimbledon, because it is a crazy difficult schedule. And I think Ruud might benefit down the stretch of this season from taking a little bit of a break after Roland Garros. The second thing was he actually got pretty sick after RG. So even if he was planning on playing grass court tournaments, he might have had to withdraw from them. And that's a wrinkle that I don't think is all that much out yet. I heard it once, and then somebody in my mentions reminded me of it again today.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was dealing with something. I don't think it ended up in English media. I think it was really just in Danish media for the most part. I don't think he was going to play any grass warm-ups anyways. I think he said that. But even if he had been scheduled to play, there were some health complications that could have gotten in the way anyways. So, it's another lost grass season. I, in the past, have been critical of his approach to grass season. I think that if he worked at it, if he took it more seriously, if he kind of took after Nadal a little bit more, who is an idol of his, who plays heavy topspin just like him. But the difference is Rafa, even as early as 2006 and 2007, he was like, yeah, I know that grass doesn't come as easily to me, but I want this. Why do I want this? Because it's Wimbledon, because it's the major that most tennis players around the world dream of winning. So the day after I win Roland Garros, I'm going to get on the grass. I'm going to work on this. And just that level of effort and that level of care, I think if Casper brought it to the table, I'm not saying he'd win Wimbledon, but I do think that he would be respectable on the grass. And I just hope that at some point in his career, he decides, yeah, I'm going to actually work on this. And what needs to happen if he does that? He's going to need to take some vacation after Wimbledon. He's not going to be able to play Bostad. I know he likes that event. It seems beautiful. It seems great. I know that there are maybe other ones like Kitzbühel that in the past he's enjoyed playing. Some of those are actually going away. But the point is that part of the year needs to be a casualty for him instead of the grass lead-in.
Yeah, I guess we're seeing that he's signed up again. He looks like he's playing doubles with Rafa. So I guess, this year is just going to be kind of an Olympic prep, right? Because you have Stad, then Kitzbühel, and then the Olympics. And yeah, I'm sure he's very eager to get that campaign started.
Definitely
one of the contenders as far as a medal goes, I think. There were some times today where I saw him go to a serve and volley play, and it just kind of looked like out of desperation, to try something new, and didn't quite always work. But I like that he was going for it, just to mix it up, because I didn't feel like his normal play style was really working from the baseline.
I saw a little bit of that too. I thought even on his backhand, there were moments where I think he was trying to be more aggressive and more proactive, flatten it out a little bit. But he was missing on it more than he normally would, especially going for the backhand down the line. So these are the kind of trade-offs that end up happening when you leave your comfort zone. But you have a chance of doing these things at a high level, obviously, if you practice them in match situations at Queens or Halle, and you end up getting those reps in so that you can feel these things out. Ruud can try all he wants to change his game when he shows up at Wimbledon without doing much of a build up, but it's obviously not going to be as effective that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think just to respond to the comment about, I guess, Ruud's mindset, I think that's true. I think he feels like he might win RG, doesn't feel like he can ever win Wimbledon. And that, I agree with that. But isn't it still a feather in Casper's cap if he can make a Wimbledon semifinal, if he can make quarterfinals at Wimbledon and become a part of that last 8 club and get tickets to Wimbledon for free for the rest of your life? And I just think it comes at no cost to him. Also, it could help his development as a player on hard court. He's going to play on some lower bouncing, slicker hard courts, and maybe the skills that he might be working on more heavily in preparation for Wimbledon might end up helping him.
Yeah, definitely so. I guess we should move on to, let's see, some other kind of standout results. I mean, we have Medvedev, right? He was in quite a tussle today against Alexander Muller. Almost down 2 sets to love, had to save 2 set points, came back from 3-love down in the second set tiebreak. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the first 2 sets, I got to be honest, because there was a lot of other stuff happening and it did start quite early for me. But why do you think Daniil was struggling so much in the very beginning? Because I don't know if it was just Muller outgrinding him from the back of the court, because I did feel like he was coming forward quite a bit. He was using the wide serve, he was mixing in the slice. This is just the kind of strategic ways that you want to play Daniil Medvedev on grass and take advantage of that deep return position. I saw a lot of that from Muller, but I didn't quite piece it together. Like, I don't remember many of the key points in the first couple of sets.
Yeah, well, I missed the first set entirely, not because I wasn't awake on the West Coast. I was awake, but I was focused on other stuff. You're right, it was quite chaotic at that time. I have never seen Alexander Muller. I've never seen him play aggressive tennis in my life. He's a guy who makes a ton of balls. He's very fit. And he's very consistent. He's pretty even off of both wings. And I just assumed, okay, it must have been a physical first set, and Muller probably out-solided Medvedev. But then you look at the stats, winners are like 11-6 in favor of the Frenchman. And at net, he was 10 of 12 in the first set. So it was like, okay, well, clearly that wasn't really the play. And then I start watching, and indeed, I see a lot of +1 approach shots, and I see mixing in the serve and volley as soon as Medvedev moved back his return position, which the commentators said that ultimately he did, even though he started in. But I think also the problem, like, Muller even was more damaging from the back of the court than Daniil. And my big takeaway was Medvedev, it just didn't seem like he could put Muller in any trouble in baseline rallies for most of the match. And it just seemed very kind of almost Thiago Zajbac-Vilch match like, where Daniil just wasn't, and I know it's like very different opponent, very different surface, but my feeling wasn't that Medvedev was playing badly. It was that he was allowing his opponent to play well. Like, I didn't see him doing anything to disrupt Muller at all. It just wasn't damaging enough from the back of the court from Medvedev. And he's not serving big enough to be super disruptive with his first serve either. Still, even though the shoulder's better, the serve isn't as bad as it has been at some points this year. So I guess I was watching it, and my main takeaway was, 1, Muller's playing really well and doing everything right. But 2, Medvedev isn't doing enough to really take anything away from Muller.
Yeah, I did feel like at times when I was watching it, it reminded me of Medvedev in 2022 in some ways, where he was just trying to win from just his pure consistency advantage. And I didn't feel like he was imposing at all from the baseline. Actually, like, he was just defending most of the time. And I have heard from some people, I don't know if this is official, so like, don't quote me on this, but like, he moved back from Razor Code to Razor Soft again. And like, I know he made that change in his strings early part of last year. So, and I wonder if there was some trade-offs with like the extra power and spin on his forehand. Maybe that's like, and some of the shoulder issues that he's dealing with. I don't know, just a theory. Maybe he felt like it might be better to go back to it and just, maybe to ease up the pain or whatever. So,
or maybe he thought because he's on grass, he can use the lower powered setup and it wouldn't hurt him. But it did in this match. And ultimately, like what ends up happening, because we're talking about it like he lost and he won, he ended up like Muller started, I think, to back away from some of the very kind of quick point aggressive tactics. And I think he got into too many of the extended exchanges that Medvedev was kind of looking for. And it was Medvedev was physically stronger than Alexander Muller in the end. So it was just this kind of, okay, Daniil relies on the physical aspect, waiting for kind of wearing down Muller. Muller kind of dips when he's starting to get a little more tired, and that's how Daniil wins, which is fine. It's an okay way to win, but I don't think it's encouraging that Daniil had to win that way.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel great about his chances to, let's say, get to the business weekend of the tournament. Like I have him in my quarterfinals, but that's more just kind of trusting that he'll find a way, in the format, not so much that he's playing super inspiring tennis right now. But he does have Jan-Lennart Struff next, who has beaten him on grass before. I think he has a pretty good head-to-head against him overall. So I do expect him to sort of kind of find a way. And I'm going to be watching the serving more carefully in the next match. I think, how much damage is he doing off that first serve, and is he having to, I guess, just defend on the heels of his second serve every single time, because Struff is just really going to come in and he's going to be super imposing and just, going to not want to get into any long rallies whatsoever. So,
yeah. And so that kind of takes away the issue that we're talking about with Medvedev is not going to be an issue against Struff, because Jan Lennard, when he's coming forward, he's going to give Medvedev targets. He's going to allow Daniil to kind of use his precision, his ability to dip passing shots low, run down the next volley. And ultimately he's going to have a bigger consistency advantage. It's going to be easier in the baseline rallies for Medvedev to just find ways to force errors, get Struff moving a little bit. It's not going to be the same where with Muller, it's kind of like, okay, Daniil, make something happen, be proactive from the baseline and create some damage. And he wasn't able to do that. Struff is a totally different matchup where he's going to be putting himself out of kind of coming at Daniil, and Medvedev is going to be able to use more of his counter punching, his counter attacking, and his scrambling. And that should be, I think, actually maybe more comfortable for Medvedev as long as the returning is there. Why do you think it's because I think it's 6-2, the head-to-head for Medvedev. Why do you think it's actually 5-1, it looks like. Do we have that on the screen? Yeah. So 5-1 for Medvedev. Why do you think it's been such a positive head-to-head for Daniil?
Well, let's see. They played most of their matches in 2021. So, Medvedev was that's the best version of Medvedev that we've had so far, in my view. So, that's the one where I did feel like his serve was just at an all-time peak, that year. Like he sustained it for the whole season. And so I didn't feel like actually in that matchup, Struff was able to gain much advantage. And, Medvedev just felt like he had that perfect medium, I think, between, lengthening rallies, playing defense, but also just, not allowing his opponents to like jump on him very early, because I feel like now what sort of happens is also Medvedev's second serve can be a bit vulnerable. And so when you see him kind of attempt to go for a kicker serve or it lands a bit short, like you see him often having to like all of a sudden just like stretch try to come up with a passing shot because he's basically on his back foot immediately after that return. I think guys have started to maybe figure that out a little bit more. That doesn't mean that they're going to beat him or they're winning against him, but it's more just something that's in the playbook. I didn't feel like, Struff probably was allowed that opportunity when they played most of the time. Struff did have that one win in 2021, Hala, but I think in a 3 out of 5 set format, I think I would have said the same thing if it was Zhang Jingzhen. I would have liked Medvedev to just, wait it out and kind of just, figure it out in 3 out of 5. But
Yeah. Well, I think you make a good point. If Medvedev loses to Struff, it's going to be his second serve's fault. Almost guaranteed.
I think so.
It's
Yeah.
going to be because Struff's going to look to attack it. So I don't see Struff winning a lot of points on first serve return. He typically doesn't. So I think the formula for Struff to find breaks of serve is going to be very clear. It's going to be to demolish the Medvedev second serve looks, and it's going to be up to Daniil to some extent limit double faults, especially in key situations. And I think the best thing to do against Struff is to serve hard into his body. But obviously you need to have the miles per hour to do it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm just going to run through some other men's results really quickly because I think we're at a risk of doing a 2-hour pod, although I'm loving this. But I guess so. Alcaraz versus Vukic, Alcaraz coming through very comfortably in sets 2 and 3, but we did have that one wobble from 5-2 up in the first where he lost his serve 3 times. I think his forehand went away a little bit. But Carlos was really able to rein it in that 6-5 game when Vukic was trying to serve it out. Came up with some magic there and then, played a great tiebreak and then kind of ran the match through. But what have you seen from Carlos in his first 2 matches? Do we even really know much? Because, I think I looked at his draw in the beginning and I was like, okay, this is a pretty favorable path amongst the top 3 players to get to the quarters semis. But now I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, you got an inspired Tiafoe, who's going to show up in that match for sure because he likes that big stage for sure. And then you've got, either Umber or Nakashima who are pretty good grass court players, and then potentially Tommy Paul in the quarters if he gets there. So,
yeah, I think I have Nakashima over Umber.
I do
think
as well. Yeah.
I think your guy is going to get it done there.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know that we've learned all that much about Alcaraz, which is not atypical in the first 2 rounds. It's usually what I say after the first 2 rounds when it comes to these guys, unless there's a situation like Djokovic and there's health stuff to look at. Alcaraz had that lapse in focus. It's just kind of like Carlos does that sometimes. It's built into his game where there's going to be, from time to time, there's going to be a 10-minute stretch where he has a big lead and somehow his mind goes to Mars and he misses everything. And now it's 5-all. So, one of those happened. And then he kind of wrote the ship. And Vukic's backhand is good on grass, but it's limiting. Very limiting. And I think there was a point in this match where Alcaraz started to figure out exactly kind of how to go to it and what to do with it. And there was a lot of, I think, Vukic backhand cross court, Alcaraz forehand inside in to kind of hurt Alex. And honestly, the match, there was enough going on where, in my personal experience, the match kind of started to lose my interest after the first set.
Yeah, absolutely the same. I was so much focused on a lot of the other action after the first set tiebreak. We did have Chris Eubanks going out, so he's going to fall outside the top 130. Unfortunately for him, we'll see if he decides to grind on the Challenger Tour, or if whatever.
Someone commented on a video that Chris said that he didn't want to.
I heard that as well. Yeah.
But I don't know where it came from. I did a Google search and could not find the source. So I'm not sure if it's a rumor or if it's actually credible. I could ask Chris. I don't know if he'd tell me.
He might. Should go for it. But yeah, I mean, it'd be a good question because obviously, he's such a good commentator and such a good, he definitely has his post-career set up ready for him. So, and he's quite happy in that role. But Bublik and Paul, I guess they came through. I mean, you have I guess Bautista Agut taking on Fognini, so someone 36 or older is going to be in the 4th round again, which is the Ruud half of the draw. Honestly, I think that might be about it for the men's. I mean, you had Nakashima coming through finally in straights over Paul. I say finally because last time they played in the second round last year, and it was Brandon who was actually up 6-2, 6-2, 4-2, and then Thompson came back, won that in 5. Played a really good match against Djokovic the next round, but I
mean, I guess the Mahach comeback, which I didn't see it, and that's the one thing that I'm excited to go back and take a look at. 5-love down in the 5th set. and Tomas Mahac, who I made a dark horse, was able to come through. So that was wild. And then you had FAA losing to Kokkinakis after the match points came yesterday, which I kind of felt coming. I thought that was a tough spot for Felix. Did you see those match points? There were some easy ones there for Felix.
I did, yeah. There were a couple of first serves that, Felix couldn't have done much about. They were really good first serves into Felix's forehand. Okay, fine. But then there were 2 forehand unforced errors there, like on the +1, where Felix just got really tight.
Yep.
And that was like 2 out of the 4. And then I think he also had a breakpoint chance. Early in the 4th, he would have went up 3-1. But again, Kokkinakis just came up with a big serve there. But yeah, that's a little disappointing, I guess, for him. I mean, he would have liked his chances to potentially get a crack at Demon or maybe Hurkacz, which can be sometimes a 50-50 matchup, even though it is grass. So he was kind of actually like one of my sleeper picks, if you want to call it that, to like maybe potentially sneak in a quarterfinal if one of the seeds goes early or something like that. But yeah, back to the drawing board, I guess, for FAA, who has had a couple of good results this year, but yeah, nothing too consistent.
No, and I thought, especially with the Madrid thing's going to help his ranking so much.
Oh yeah,
but it's not quite If you're building a ratio between how impressive the run was to how many points is on his ranking as a result of it, it's going to be heavily tilted towards points on his ranking.
Oh yeah. Yep. I guess let's talk about the women's side today.
Let's do it.
I mean, we did have that situation where we had both Emmas playing at the same time and no other matches were happening on the outside courts. So I'll ask you this: which Emma impressed you more, Raducanu or Navarro?
Navarro, I think.
Yeah, I think that was mine as well.
Yeah. I just, it was such a clean performance. Like she literally, I don't know, she gave like nothing up. There was maybe twice in the match where I thought she missed a neutral ball that she didn't need to miss.
Yeah.
Especially like
5 unforced errors the whole match. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 unforced, but I wonder, and let me I'll pull up these stats so maybe that we can discern something from that. Like if some were double faults, if there was a missed volley in there, which I don't think Wimbledon counts as a lot of unforced errors. There's 1 double fault. So that accounts for 1 of the 5. Just so clean, and she moves really well. And I thought she was hitting super well on the run. And I know you tweeted that she was playing a lot through the middle. And I think that was very apparent because the way Osaka is on top of the baseline, I just don't know that she absorbs depth all that well, especially on the grass. Do you agree?
Especially with the big forehand swing that she has. I think that gets her into trouble sometimes, like getting the right footing. I think when the ball is coming really deep at her shoelaces. Also think maybe movement-wise in the corners, definitely not as sound as she is on hard court where it's a much more true bounce. And, she's a lot more comfortable, I think, just being a lot more explosive when she's in the corners. It doesn't quite work on grass because she kind of stops hard. And you need like those small adjustment steps, like when you're, moving inside the court or you're recovering back to the middle. So I just thought, it was such a tactically sound performance by Navarro, like all throughout. And I mean, Naomi still, I like where her comeback is headed. Like, it's in a strong direction. Like she doesn't have those really big wins yet to show for it, but I do think it puts some pressure, I think, still on the hard court season because many people were kind of looking at the US Open as like the place where, she can go on this really big run and maybe get herself back in a position where she can be in the top 10 again. But at the same time, I'm also starting to think, there's a lot of really good players right now, and the depth is pretty good, the last, compared to when she was dominating, let's say 2 or 3 years ago on the hard court majors. So I do wonder, it puts a lot of pressure on like Cincinnati maybe, and she's still going to be reliant on some draws because if she isn't seeded at the US Open, could have a situation where she's playing an Iga Świątek type in the first round again.
Yeah, that's certainly true. She is one of those players who is kind of, I don't know. She has protected. I don't think it's going to come to this at all. And, she's inside the top 100 now, and her ranking is going to be fine by the time her protecteds are over. But she's like a totally safe bet as a wild card player if it came to that. I don't think it will come to that. I agree, and that's what I said before her comeback started. And I always kind of err on the side for a player as young as Osaka that she's going to figure out how to get back to a similar level where she was. I don't think you lose that kind of talent. I don't think you forget how to do the things that got you to that certain point. Physical is another story, but Osaka's so young, I wasn't worried about the physical. What I was worried about is the field. You just have some stiffer competition at the top. There's no doubt about it, and it's going to make it harder for Osaka rather. At the same time, she also still needs to get to the point where she's not getting picked off by an Emma Navarro type on any sort of regular basis. So if on hard court, I think here's the barometer on hard court. If she can just avoid bad losses week to week to week on hard, and she's getting to the end of the tournaments and she's facing the top players, I think that's kind of the next step in her comeback. And I won't be concerned if she takes some tough losses to top players, but I think it's the consistency that now she needs to find. I think mentally she's back after Roland Garros. And that's what first half of the year, it didn't quite look right. I don't know. There was a certain desolate nature, and she was saying she was happy off the court, which I totally buy. And I was really happy to hear that. But I didn't see a ton of emotional investment in, point in and point out from Osaka in some of these matches. And that I think has flipped around.
Yeah, I agree. Also, she's showing a lot more positive body language in between points. Like you see her lose these tough points, and she's just like, come on, I got this. And she's just a lot more stronger, and she is more willing to play week to week to week now and build up that match fitness. Even if it is just one match or two matches a week, it definitely like sort of adds up to that body of work. And this was really like one of her first losses that were pretty one-sided. Like, for the most part, she has had like close loss against Zhang Xinwen, close loss on Rescue, close loss Iga, like good run in Rome. So she's had things to like build on, but she just needs that one really standout win, I feel like. And when she gets that, that could be the spark that just takes her ranking up like a lot more. But also the tricky part is now she's going to go back to the clay at Roland Garros, and then it kind of really only leaves like Cincinnati, and then it's go time.
True.
Right, to the US Open. So
true.
Maybe a more realistic goal could honestly be Australian Open. Like try to get yourself seated for that, and then maybe you're in a good spot then. But
yeah, or it would still be meaningful for her if she was able to post US Open go on a little run. Yeah. That would be helpful. I think Iga kind of set herself up nicely for this year, and so did Jannik Sinner. And oftentimes, you and I kind of pay attention to these historical trends, and I like to think we don't overreact as much as maybe some others do, Vanch, where we know that sometimes post-US Open hot streaks don't translate to kind of the next year. But I feel like Osaka's the kind of player where if she did go on that hot streak post-US Open, I think it would matter for the next year, because once it clicks from a confidence standpoint, especially because nerve management has not been her strength thus far. And I think she needs to win some close matches so that she starts to feel a little bit better when the scoreboard gets tight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also Raducanu coming through rather comfortably against Elise Martins, more straightforward than I certainly thought it would be. Not that surprised by the outcome, but and now that puts Raducanu in a good spot as far as the draw goes. But like, did you see much of that match, and you have any big takeaways from it, or
which one?
Raducanu against Martins?
No. I mean, it happened really quickly, obviously, and I didn't catch much of it at all. But it just seems like Emma. I did watch some of Emma's first round match, and it just feels like her ability to strike the ball clean and change direction and hug the baseline, it makes her an imposing player on the grass, where on other surfaces, she ends up looking a whole lot more overpowered.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's so good at like redirecting pace and like, and I thought this was good because Martins is going to force you to create some on her own and on your own. And, you're going to have to like really construct points in a meaningful way. And you're not, but it also seemed like Martins didn't really play her best tennis. So yeah, I'm not sure how much I'll really read into it, but she does have Sakari next, and Sakari is one of the seeds you definitely want, and as far as the grass court type match goes. So yeah,
I'm excited for that one. That's going to be good. And also, I think there's a lot of forgetfulness when it comes to Emma's initial breakthrough 4th round at Wimbledon, when she ended up having to pull out in that match against Ayla Tomljanovic because of what she did at her next slam. So I don't know, the British players definitely have an edge on this surface in a big way in terms of experience. And we've seen it with Katie Bolter. I think we can expect to see it with Emma as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you another story I'm really happy about is Bianca Andreescu winning a lot, in her comeback, like quietly putting together a really nice comeback now since Roland Garros, which is the first tournament she plays, ends up losing to eventual finalist Jasmine Paolini. She's going to play Jasmine Paolini again in the 3rd round. And I think sometimes people also forget last year, Andreescu was leading Jabeur 3-1 in the 3rd set in that 3rd round match. So, her last 2 majors that she's played, she's lost to the eventual winner. And I usually take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I feel like for Andreescu, any sort of bonus, especially when you've been off the tour for 10 months, coming back and stringing together wins like this and not having to play 3 sets in any of her first 2 rounds, I think that's big.
Yeah, definitely. She's gotten really crafty. Like there's a lot of backhand slice, there's drop shotting, there's some opportune net approaching. And I think that's helped her game quite a bit because she's not the best server. And I think when she tries to be a power baseliner or a consistent baseliner, especially because the physicality is, or not the physicality, but the durability is sometimes a question mark. It doesn't suit her as well. So I like how she's actually finding inventive ways to construct points right now. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like free flowing, just, creative, instinctual, because she did get into a bit of a rut where she was just trying to outpower power players, and that's not really her style. Like I do, she's kind of like Kazakina to me with like a little more power. So
yeah,
that's kind of the mold where I see. So I guess what else on the women's side today? You also had, Gauff came through very comfortably. I didn't see any bit of that really. It just looks like, Gauff just being a lot more solid than a player she's supposed to win against. Svitolina coming through 6-3 in the 3rd against Lynette. That looked like a war. And for quite a bit, actually, Lynette managed to clinch the 2nd set tiebreak, saved a match point. So some jeopardy there for last year's semifinalist.
Apparently, Collins Towson was a really good match, and that's a 6-3, 7-6 for Collins, whose game in theory suits grass, but she hasn't really had results on the surface. And it's good to see her picking up some steam once again.
Yeah, definitely. She's and now with Vondrousova out in that section, maybe there's a chance she could get to the quarters and potentially play Swiatek, but she's got to get through Dalma Golfi first, and then who does she have in her section after that? Maybe Haddad Maya. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that section or 8th shakes out. But let's see any other notable results. Krejcikova getting a win over Kudermetova, I felt like either player badly needed a win there. Yeah, it just hasn't been great at all for Kudermetova this whole season. And I guess Krejcikova still has that Australian Open quarterfinal result, so there's still some points on her season this far. And I guess these are 2 players that can go on a bit of a run here because I do see some potential for them in this part of the draw, to get to the 2nd week. It feels quite wide open, especially the bottom half, after the first day.
It certainly does. So it will be interesting. Krejcikova right now, I'm fascinated in what the next year or so looks like, and kind of, I don't know, I think the jury is out on how people will perceive her. And I know it's not, it's not always such a big deal to kind of get into the legacy stuff, especially when a player is still playing. But someone asked me to rank the 1 slam winners and just put them in a ranking of kind of how good. It was a little bit vague, like how good do I think they are? And Krejcikova was the one. I had her pretty close to the bottom, and she was the one that people were fighting about. How does she compare? to, you know, your Yelena Ostapenko's or your Sloane Stevens's. And obviously there's like some players who probably won't stay at 1 who are in there, like Rybakina. It's something interesting to think about because she's certainly done a whole lot more than just won that Roland Garros title. And I don't even think clay is her best surface at all. I think it's probably hard court.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, interesting food for thought there for all the one slam WTA players.
The one slam power rankings. It was a good mailbag comment.
Interesting. Let's see. I mean, do you have any other kind of results that
Yeah, the one I think we didn't hit on it is men's, but it's Tiafoe, who just is looking like the best version of himself that we've seen in a long time. And I just saw a lot of really big serving against Coric, and I saw some great scrambling that showed a lot of tenacity. And he tends to just do magical things with the ball when he gets there. Like he'll pull off these great short slices or these brilliant lobs or super precise down the line passing shots where he'll kind of thread the needle. So there's just more magic in his game in the last couple matches that I've seen in a long time. And he also just seems to be enjoying himself more on the court, where I just think it's funny how everybody's kind of been watching Francis and looking for that version of Francis. It's like, where's the joy? Where's the showmanship? And when that kind of left his game, it just seemed like everything went flat, including the execution of the basics at times. But I don't know. I mean, Alcaraz next, so it likely ends there. But I think the big question is, can he give Carlitos a test that resembled the U.S. Open semifinal? Because that was a really, really, really good match. And that will kind of show, I think, if he does, that it's kind of clicked back into place for Francis. And then was this a kind of a bit of a flash of old top 15 level Francis these last couple matches? Or I shouldn't even say last couple matches, last couple sets, last few sets of his matches. Or is it going to kind of go back to a Tiafoe who's playing like a borderline top 30 player?
Yeah, just certainly like playing Carlitos close, trying to, if he is able to get a set or just, put on some really good points and just really like, because now he can just full on enjoy that match. It'll be like Carlitos when he played Evans at the US Open last year, or like Sonego earlier this year, where these are just like type of matches that both players really enjoy, and they seem to like really just relish in that showboating competition. So, yeah, I kind of like what you said about Tiafoe, like the serve, especially in the first set tiebreak. He had 3 aces in that tiebreak, if memory serves correctly, and he was kind of looking like old Tiafoe again. Let's say like pre-US Open last year. So, yeah, I think the signs could be good for Francis, because there was certainly a chance that he could have lost to Arnaldi yesterday, but then the last 3 sets were so convincing, or I should say day before, but pretty convincing finishes. So
definitely
build on.
Yeah, for sure. I said on my show yesterday that with the clown comment, he was trying to be self-deprecating, and obviously it was a failure and it was bad and he shouldn't have said it. But I do think that was his intention. I just want to throw that out there. That's my take on it. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I actually think, the whole thing about if you lose to a clown, you are a clown. I think that was Francis's point. So everyone was responding to what he said with that. I think that's the point. Like, he knows that if you lose to a clown, if you lose to a clown, you're the clown.
Yeah.
But I think that's what Francis was trying to say.
I think so. I think that's what he was going for. Yeah, probably ideally would have been better to use a different word choice, but I knew what he was going for here. I don't think he was like purposely trying to put down his opponents or anything. I didn't get
not
that
purposely. Not purposely.
So yeah, a bit of fun. I see a lot of clown jokes in the comments right now, but yeah.
A lot of what? Clown jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, let's see. Yeah. So should we look ahead to tomorrow's order of play? Like
Sure.
any matches? You want to make some predictions or anything like
I
that?
haven't even looked, honestly. I mean, maybe I glanced, but I haven't internalized any of it.
Yeah, same. I'm pulling it up right now, actually, as we speak. Some of it is on the screen for us. Yeah. So I guess we have Andy Murray finishing.
Burnley.
Okay, that's doubles.
Look, it's going to be I think it's a really interesting day. I don't think Martic is going to be able to give Swiatek 4 games, to be honest. But I'm excited for Jamie and Andy, very. And I'm excited for Fernley Djokovic. I'm excited for Draper Norrie. I think that one could go either way, actually. And I think for Cam, I think he's going to be like I
think he's going to love it, being the underdog in the match.
I do too. I think he's going to fight as hard as any tennis player can fight, honestly. Yeah. And I think your own Zverev could be a match.
I think so too. Yeah. I've seen Giron play, in Halle when he beat Berrettini, and there's so many things actually he does well that's suited to the surface, with the way he's able to like just crush forehands, like just flatten them out like crazy, like inside ins, and like he keeps the ball pretty low. He comes forward, and he's had a few good runs this year, especially like Dallas, Del Rey, those kind of tournaments. And I think he likes the low bounce as well. Zverev likes to get into long matches early in tournaments, or at least has a habit of doing so. So it's certainly
agreed.
One to watch.
Feast struggles on the return of serve a little bit, so I think that's a good matchup for Hurkacz.
I think so. Yeah,
I expect Monfils to beat Stan.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's up 2 sets to love. I'm not going out on a limb. Yeah, Harris Shelton definitely could be fun. I have that pretty much 50-50. I said before the draw came out that Shelton wouldn't make it to the 3rd round.
Oh, I did as well. I think I had Lloyd Harris coming through, actually. But Lloyd Harris is who he plays, right? Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think I have Harris as a slight favorite in that one. I just not liking a whole lot of things that I've been seeing from Shelton this grass swing, like the return of serve, the backhand weakness is coming up a bit too often. I feel like the shot selection at times, I don't think he's quite figured it out, because a lot of people were saying, Shelton, grass, big serve, it's going to be a huge weapon and going to do a lot of damage. But I was like, the jury's still out on it, because he has a big swing on the forehand. He's not, like he has a good kick serve, but I don't know how effective that really is on grass, especially. Actually, he might be a little bit better suited to clay. I think he is better suited to clay at this point in his career right now than grass.
I don't think it's a bad take. I don't at all. I watched him in Houston, and I'm not one to put a lot of stock in Houston, but I mean, I actually thought he was going to have a better clay season than he had, because he's kick serve, spinny on the forehand, pretty spinny on the backhand, although he could maybe stand to be spinnier on the backhand sometimes, because when he flattens it out, I don't always like the consistency. And also he needs runarounds, and you need a little bit of time to find those runarounds. Holger has a really good draw. I think he's flying under the radar. It's interesting. Let's see. Samsonova.
He should come through Zyboth.
He should.
Comfortably, I would think.
I agree. Samsonova is a perennial Wimbledon dark horse.
Yeah. Could play Raducanu in the 4th round, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good head-to-head for Samsonova. There's actually a lot of really intriguing, like, if they happen, like 4th rounds, but we just have to kind of get past this 2nd round for all these things to take place. Safiullin came back. Safiullin came back from 2 sets to love down to beat Cerundolo. I kind of missed that one.
Yeah, that one was pretty easy to. That one was easy to miss. I mean, I think the surface is an equalizer in that matchup.
Yeah, Tsitsipas versus Ruusuvuori. Do you see that one getting a bit tricky, or do you think Tsitsipas should be able to figure that one out? Kind of 3 or 4 sets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 4 or 5 sets in that one. But I think Tsitsipas will figure it out. I don't know that Ruusuvuori is able to serve quite well enough to take advantage of Tsitsipas' return issues. That said, he's got a good flat ground game that's quite damaging, and I think he'll like his chances backhand to backhand against Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
Emil is a guy who I think after the Australian Open, there's probably nobody who I would have been further off on in terms of my projection for the year, because I thought something had clicked for him, but he's struggled.
He's been
recently.
hurt, right? Like for most of the year.
Yes, and maybe I don't know if the injury, because he was losing before he missed time, he was losing all his matches. So I don't know if it was an injury that he carried and tried to play through, and that's why he has struggled so much. But he had this amazing January, and yeah, if you just kind of look at, I mean, he hasn't won back-to-back matches at any event since Doha.
Wow. Yeah. It's been a while because he did get to the Hong Kong final, I remember, and then lost to Rublev there in the final.
Yep.
And he did beat
final.
Sinner here. He did beat Sinner on grass last year, but it was the very start of the grass season. I think when Sinner was making his service motion change, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I called that match, I remember. And Ruusuvuori just caught absolute fire on the backhand. It was like the best I've ever seen him hit it by miles.
Yeah. In many ways, he kind of reminds me of Sinner, but just kind of less good at most of the things.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
definitely.
yeah. Right. But actually, like this Tsitsipas section, I did feel like this Wimbledon, although there's not much about his game on grass that I particularly rate super highly, but I did feel like with this draw, if Korda lost early, and like let's say some things panned out, and let's say he plays Lorenzo Musetti or something in the 4th round, a matchup that he does enjoy, I could see Tsitsipas making a deep run at Wimbledon this year, maybe even a semifinal, just based on the draw and matchups, not so much on his grass court game, you know.
It certainly could happen. I have Musetti in the quarters out of this section, which obviously I was concerned about in the first round. It looked like he was going to go down 2-0 against Constant Lestienne. You know, Pechi Perikar against Tsitsipas.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's going to be like Eubanks last year.
Yes.
It's going to be razor tight.
Yep.
Yeah. In many ways, I think Pechikard is a little bit of a better version of Eubanks. Would you agree with that? Maybe just how he moves and just the extra bit of variety, like on clay as well.
More muscle on the serve. Like Chris is a great spot server, but he's not. Yeah. He doesn't hit bombs like Pechi Perikar does.
And he's kind of like Maxime Cressy 3 years ago, where he's just like he's rolling the dice on these second serves, and it's working. He's hitting like 130 second serves.
Totally. He is doing that, which I love. He's also got a weapon for a forehand, which is very Isner-like. You know, it's like, you know, you don't just bring the serve; you have that big forehand. And he's just going to have to manage the backhand. That'll be the task his whole career. Just manage it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and anything else? I'm interested to see Fernley versus Djokovic because I haven't ever seen Fernley play actually. And, you know, I just know that he's from TCU, where Cam Nuri is also from. So this will be my first real.
Same. I maybe Damien can help us out. Probably saw him on the Nottingham run when Fernley did. I think he won it. I think he won the title in Nottingham.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for that as well. But I'll be watching Fernley with fresh eyes as well. Which not too long ago we were watching Jack Draper in a somewhat similar situation take on Djokovic. That was a first round match, but I remember that was the first time I ever saw Draper was against Novak at Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm. So just also on Novak, based on what you saw in his first round and, you know, the narrative coming in, do you feel like the knee meniscus thing is not really a thing we should be concerned about? And you feel like, you know, over the course of the tournament, he can definitely manage it and it's not really going to...
Yeah. It depends how much he can turn it up. Like, I didn't think he looked that fast against Kopriva. And I also thought there were moments moving to his right, sliding on his right leg where it actually didn't look normal. But I don't think you can necessarily say that that's going to be the case in, next week, a few matches from now. Like what I talked about on my show yesterday is like, we saw Djokovic win the Australian Open without really hitting open stance sliding backhands for the entire first week when he had the hamstring injury. So he can, most of the guys he's playing, he doesn't necessarily need to have all of those defensive capabilities on lock. I think towards the end of the tournament, it's going to become more important. But I'm not going to say like I'm really confident in my Djokovic to win the title prediction. What I will say is the thing that makes me most nervous about my prediction is the threat of an Alcaraz or Sinner beating him. What I'm not really nervous about is that, the knee ends up becoming a big problem, or that he has like a dud performance and gets upset early.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the signs are good in terms of the knee. Like he wouldn't be playing this tournament, if he didn't feel like he could go for the title. So I do think.
Yeah. That's why I was not surprised with the performance against Kopriva. A lot of people were pleasantly surprised that he looked as good as he did. I was like, came as no surprise to me. I don't think he would have, if he would have had to struggle against Kopriva, I don't think he would have been playing.
So I know you have Djokovic then on the men's side, but what about the women's side? Do you have like a pick of who's going to go all the way?
Yeah, I went with Iga. I mean, I think her and Rybakina and Sabalenka, if you made the pick before the withdrawal, were the, unless you were going off the board, that was going to be it. And like for me, I prefer Rybakina on the grass to Sabalenka by a little bit, because I think I like her serve better and I like her return better for various reasons. The reason I decided to go with Iga is because mentally and physically, if you give me 7 matches, I just trust her to hold up better than Rybakina without some sort of a hiccup or some sort of an issue popping up. And I also think that Iga's improvements on her serve and Iga's improvements in defending her forehand against pace and just not letting that wing beat her, combined with, I think, probably just a more sturdy confidence, just kind of gave me all the green lights that I needed to go with Swiatek.
Excellent. Yeah.
Who do you have?
I went really back and forth as well. I ended up going with Iga in the end because I didn't really trust Sabalenka after the stuff she was saying in her press conference. I thought, I could see an earlier type of exit. And then Rybakina, I felt like it might look good at the start of the tournament, but maybe like the health concerns, the dips, physical dips that we've been seeing like too often for me this year, to where like you could reliably bank that she's going to get to the Swiatek matchup. So I didn't even have her getting there. I think I had Pegula taking her out in the quarters. So I went with Pegula to make her first ever semifinal of a major, which would be quite cool to see. And then I thought Iga would win that match, get to the final. And then I think in the bottom half, I actually went with Madison Keys.
I like it.
Went with Keys, yeah. I thought I was going between her and Gauff, but it was like really, really close. I went like 51-49 in favor of Keys. I think she really likes the grass, especially when she was coming up. I mean, the grass was like maybe her best surface aside from the hard courts. And now I think, I like what I've seen from her basically since March. And I think she's playing with a lot more margin and safety, and at the same time being as attacking as ever. And the serve is really going to help her. And yeah, I'm not super confident in the Keys pick, but I definitely I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one who you're going to be really confident in, I don't think, picking on the bottom half. But I think it's going to be an American. I think it's going to be Gauff or Navarro or Keys.
Yeah, Navarro major final. Wow, yeah, that would be quite something.
It would be a lot, but she's been really good. What is she in the race?
I think top 10. I'll check.
Yeah. I mean, so that's kind of what I'm saying. Like it sounds a little bit crazier because she kind of came out of nowhere, but she's 11th in the race.
11th, yeah. I mean, and she's had results on all 3 surfaces so far. So, including taking out Keys at Roland Garros. So I think, she's another player. I'm not sure. She might just be so well rounded on everything because she moves so well and absorbs speed so well. And the forehand is very spinny, but it's super effective, and she moves. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Unless we have something else in the comments. I'm just going through it right now. I don't believe we do. Do you have like a favorite moment of Wimbledon so far in the first 3 days? Or like any kind
I'd say the Lloyd Harris match point, but
Okay,
there's
that's
been
fair.
an absurd number of intriguing matches. It's been, I mean, at least on the men's side, it's been pretty insane with the 5-setters and the 2 sets to love down comebacks. Where are we at 8 now?
Sounds right. I think we had 4 like on the first days itself.
Yeah,
so-
and I think we had another 4. It's craziness. I've never seen anything like it. So yeah, it's been a, you know, I think we're the same way. Like first couple days of majors, we're looking for great matches to kind of tune into on, you know, our ESPN Plus accounts, and it's just been so many options.
Yeah, I had like 5 screens today. That's like on my table, and it was just a bit of a shame because you can't really watch one match like in super detail and like
No,
and you kind of feel like if I go back now, I'll probably look at the point by point on Flash Score, and I'll be like, okay, I might want to tune in and see the break points here, or like see the tie break here, based on if they're really holding really easily. I'm probably not going to watch the whole thing, but I'll probably just see, you know, what were the turning points really. But
definitely.
kind of how you have to do it with the grass.
Yep.
But yeah, it was super great having you on Last Ball Drops. I don't think you've ever done this before. I know you've come on the channel, but this was your first last drops in. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah,
It was
keep up all the great work.
always a pleasure. I love the whole operation at Talking Tennis. John does a great job kind of organizing this, and it's a great team of people, including yourself, Vanch. So always good to be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And be sure to give Gil's Monday Match Analysis, subscribe to that, and also subscribe to the 3 A Tennis Show, and anything else like you've got that you want to plug, you know, in the pipeline for you. I know you do the draw as well, which comes in my inbox every Tuesday, and I love that because it's a collection of all the best tennis content.
Yes. Yes, the draw.tennis to subscribe to the newsletter. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun to do so far, and yeah, it's been great. Oh, and I have a Discord channel now. That's a new thing that I can plug. Link is in the description. Any recent video that I've posted, the link to the Discord is in the description.
Fantastic. And I think we're at I actually can't see it, but I think we're at around 9,000 subscribers now. So, you know, hit the subscribe button to Talking Tennis if you haven't already. You know, check out the watch-alongs that I'm sure we're going to have tomorrow and the rest of the week. And yeah, this was really good. Thanks for all the comments that came in as usual. And we'll see you tomorrow. And thanks once again, Gil.
This was terrific. Thanks.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.